Hi there, welcome to another episode of 411 Pop Culture. Here at 411 Pop Culture, we're going to be listing down our favorite 80s movies. Joining me is Danielle Almendra, and we're going to be doing 4 episodes, various genres, counting down our favorite 80s movies. We sort of bonded together on 80s movies, so we figured it would be a good way to kind of cement our relationship while also showing you and sharing with you our favorite 80s movies. So stay tuned to the next episode because your picks might still be out there. Thanks for joining us, everybody. On tonight's episode, we are going to be doing our countdown of 80s films on the genres of science fiction, John Hughes, and adult comedies. Let's go ahead and get started right in. Danielle, what is your list of top 5 sci-fi flicks from the 80s?
My top 5 movies are The Abyss, Inner Space, Runaway, Aliens, and Predator.
And my list is Back to the Future, The Terminator, Aliens, The Incredible Shrinking Woman, and Critters. So for me, I think Back to the Future is a very obvious, one of the most iconic movies of all time, not just specific to the 80s. You've got this sort of fun energy, an interesting story, you know, with the teen element, this boy who's trying to fend off his mother while trying to get his father to ask his mother out because he's disrupted time. It's got everything. It's got a little bit of excitement, fast-paced, but also time travel, science fiction. It's a great fun one for me. And then what was one of yours?
Well, I was just going to say, I don't really care for Back to the Future. Back to the Future is just not one of my favorites. I mean, I enjoyed it the first time around, don't get me wrong, but I never really got into that spirit of it. I know! People always think I'm crazy for it, but anyway.
Nuts. You're going to have to watch again as an adult. I bet you might get more.
Maybe I should, yeah. So I've got The Abyss.
Okay. And that's one I'm also not as familiar with from this list.
Just, you know, they're not like deep sea, but they're deep enough. And they go on this rig and they're, you know, I don't know what they're doing down there, honestly, but they come across these aliens that are like in the real deep, and it's got Ed Harris. It's fantastic.
Well, I also know that a lot of people are still waiting for the Blu-ray of True Lies as well as The Abyss. And in The Abyss, I don't know which ending you've seen, and don't spoil it here, but I know that there's like an entirely different ending to this movie.
Really?
So I don't know which one you've seen, but people are clamoring to see, because one was like a television version.
Okay.
I think they've shown it, and then the other one's like the DVD VHS release.
I think I know what you're talking about now.
So yeah, I think people have been like nuts for this. Also for me, one of my all-time favorite movies, we talked about this on the kids episode, but The Incredible Shrinking Woman. It's Lily Tomlin, who's one of my favorite comedic actresses, and I love the concept of people shrinking. I think it's a funny, satirical look at, you know, economy and consumerism, but also very science-y fiction type of 80s interpretation of it, but of this woman who's slowly shrinking away to nothing.
Well, and on that note, Inner Space.
Oh,
They're
yeah, same thing
again,
too.
right?
Yeah. That's why I loved it. Danielle showed me this movie when I was a teen, late teen, and I was like, I don't want to watch this piss. And then I'm like, oh, it's great. They're shrinking. Let's watch it, you know?
I know. I mean, he like gets injected into his girlfriend's body, and like he's floating around inside
really
somebody's
neat,
body.
yeah.
It's definitely strange, but it's awesome. You have to watch it.
Yeah, I think another one of the best movies of all time, including just the 80s, is The Terminator. I know that you're also it's not a big one for you, but it's a great love story. I think it's a love story first and foremost about, like, you know, if one thing didn't happen, could the next thing happen, and how everything is cyclical, and that's, you know, very reminiscent of a lot of James Cameron's work. But it's also the action, it's excitement, it's got a very much the final girl horror setup too, which I love. Yeah. And the soundtrack is great too. There's no big songs from it, although I love the whole tech noir scene. I love it. The slow motion 80s dancing. I'm sold. But also just the you know, it's a great movie to me anyway. And also James Cameron, Aliens. I think that was that on your list too.
Yes, it was.
Okay, yeah. You know, the original Alien was very much a haunted house in space movie horror. This one is definitely more horror action, and I think from, you know, it's relentless. You know, you get started right away, the roller coaster going up, but it's the excitement of that, and then it's a roller coaster ride the rest of the movie until the end, and it's relentless. And Sigourney Weaver's performance in it is outstanding, as it is in anything that she does, from Working Girl to Gorillas in the Mist. Sigourney Weaver is sold. What else was on your list? Runaway? Okay, yeah, I love Runaway too. Now, I'd say the concept of Runaway is similar to the Terminator in terms of machines affecting
Yeah.
mankind, but with Terminator, it's more saying we have to fear technology. But I feel like in Runaway, the concept, especially true to Michael Crichton's most of his work,
Yeah.
is that it's more about humans are the problem with technology, not technology
Yeah.
itself. And I think that's a great story though. But Tom Selleck and
Cynthia Rhodes.
Cynthia Rhodes,
Yeah.
yeah. But what do you love about that movie?
I mean, and obviously Gene Simmons.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's a little wooden, but it works for the character. Like
Oh yeah.
he's like the most stiff James Bond villain that never was.
Right.
But he's good in it. Like it's
Yeah.
good. It works. He's got because he's something about his eyes that are maniacal. I think. Like I think
Yeah.
it's fantastic. Those spidery things too at the end. Good movie.
I mean, they jump on you, and
Yeah.
nobody likes spiders. I mean, then you could
Yeah,
also
yeah,
cross
yeah.
that over to the '90s with Arachnophobia, which
Sure,
is another one of my
yeah, yeah,
favorites.
yeah.
I think that was like kind of like a precursor to people are afraid of spiders.
Well,
and now
talk
you've
about-
got these mechanical spiders.
We'll talk about
you know?
precursors though too. It's
Yeah.
very prophetic. You know, the images in that movie, the technology they use is very
Yeah.
box-like 80s, but it's prophetic to Alexa and these things
Yeah.
that we invite into our home. And if people mess around with them, they could really cause destruction.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a very underrated movie. It's not great, but it's great for the
Yeah.
concepts that it has. And for a straight-laced thriller, I think it's terrific.
I've only got one thing to say about my other movie, which is Predator.
Oh, yeah.
Creepy.
Yeah, that
I mean,
guy's creepy.
that-
yeah,
I
he
don't
is.
even think creepy. It's just like terrifying.
It really is a terrifying idea. Like the way too that they
Yeah.
filmed it, the way it was very clever of them.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, I think it works too.
Yeah.
And then I think last on mine was Critters.
Yeah.
I love that movie. It's it's a borderline science fiction horror, but I love the whole aliens concept. It's silly, it's funny, but it's sincere, and that's why
Yeah.
I love Critters. Next up on our list, we're going to be talking about John Hughes movies, and we're going to be listing our personal choices from worst to best, but our top 5 favorite movies. I'll go first, starting at number 5 for me is National Lampoon's European Vacation. Number 4, 16 Candles. Number 3, Pretty in Pink. Number 2, Breakfast Club. And number 1, Some Kind of Wonderful. And what is your list, Danielle?
From worst to best, my top 5 are The Great Outdoors, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Uncle Buck, Ferris Bueller, and The Breakfast Club.
Now, I want to go through my list first and then yours, and we'll talk it through. But for me, I love all the vacation movies. Well, at least up until Vegas Vacation. I didn't really see the 80's thing, but European was the first one I saw, and I thought it was just so funny as a kid watching it. The whole train sequence where they're like kind of flicking, trying to annoy each other. He's rattling the paper while the other one's flicking the ashtray, popping gum. It's a great movie. I loved the whole European landscape. And then 16 Candles was John Hughes' first real teen-centered movie. You got Molly Ringwald, She Loves the Boy, The School Dance. Everything's great about that. And I think that's even pushed forward more in Pretty in Pink, which is my next choice. Pretty in Pink is great. I do feel like, I'd always love to see the alternate ending because it has, she ends up with Ducky in the end in the original version, which is why Some Kind of Wonderful is my number 1 pick, and I'll get to that in a moment. But Pretty in Pink, a great soundtrack. It does have my favorite 80's song from an 80's John Hughes movie, which is If You Leave by Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark. Great story, though, about class. She loves the pipe away. And I do think, even though I would love to see the alternate ending, and I also think the story was going that way, I am happy that she ended up with Andrew McCarthy's character. And then Breakfast Club is probably the most iconic of John Hughes movies. Everybody knows Breakfast Club. The simplicity of it, the analysis of these different viewpoints of teenagers, but yet they're all universal.
Right.
And then for me, the best of the John Hughes movies, even though he didn't direct this one, was Some Kind of Wonderful. It takes the same concepts of Pretty in Pink, but it gives it the original ending. And even though it's not as fresh as the other ones, it's the most refined, in my opinion, of all of John Hughes' themes are put together for the teen genre into a nice cohesive quality. And I think the chemistry, the soundtrack, the ending, everything about it just works 100%. And that's my, top list for John Hughes, but let's go through yours.
Yeah, so starting with my last pick, it was The Great Outdoors. It's a good movie. I love John Candy. He's always funny. The best scene in that
so
movie
funny,
by far is when he thinks that his brother-in-law, whoever it is dressed up as a bear, but it's a real grizzly bear. And I'm telling you, that comedic point right there in the movie really
Sure, it is
It's
funny.
a camping
It's
trip with
really
your
funny.
family. I mean, it's
It's
just
a universal
funny.
thing, yeah.
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Which was hard for me. That was my other. I had to choose
Yeah,
between European and Christmas
and
for me,
honestly, it's
and I
foreign,
thought,
but it's still something I watch. It's almost a tradition for me to watch it at least once a year,
me
right
too,
around
me
Christmas
too. It makes
time.
me feel like Christmas, you know.
And it's just one of those movies where I remember really laughing out loud watching it, and I didn't think something could make you laugh like that, and it does.
I think it's my favorite coupling of the Griswold children, Juliette Lewis and Johnny Galecki, who would go on to be in Roseanne later on, the Connors anyway.
Yeah.
And but everybody seems to know their place, like what to bring to it. The parents, great. I think it's a wonderful John Hughes movie.
And what about what's her name, the next door neighbor?
From Seinfeld.
Julie Louis-Dreyfus.
Julie Louis-Dreyfus. Yeah.
Okay. She's also really good in that movie.
Hilarious in it. Her, everything about it works together for this movie. Yes.
I don't know, Todd, or whatever it is. Uncle Buck. Yeah. Again, John Candy is a babysitter. It's just hilarious.
And you got a young Macaulay Culkin and Gabby Hoffman, and it's a really good one.
Yeah, a lot of funny parts in that one too. Obviously, too many to name, but you should definitely check it out. Ferris Bueller.
It's not one of my. It's definitely. I love the movie and it's on there, but of all the teen ones, for me, maybe it's because watching it when I was a kid, it made me want to have a day off from school so bad. So I had that sort of negative connotation, like I want that day, But it's definitely great.
Not one of those movies we've ever really talked about together. No. But I watched it all the time when I was younger.
Well, I love what I love about that movie, and it's also part of the reason why I don't go to it as much, is because I love all the Jennifer Grey sequences in it, the sister Jeannie, and I also feel like it should be just as much her story, let alone Ferris Bueller's Day. Also, since the movie's called Ferris Bueller, I feel like Jeannie's character is getting pushed to the side again, which is what she's doing in the movie. But I used to pee my pants laughing when the whole kick thing happened with Principal Rooney, when he's at the house and he's like, ha, and she jumps out, ha, and she's like, ah, kick.
And he is such a great comedic
one of the best moments. Oh, he's funny too. He's funny too. And being a creepy guy in real life, but Jeffrey Jones, nuts. What's wrong with you?
Right.
But he was funny in it,
He was. And then The Breakfast Club.
Again, iconic. It's just. I probably should get my number one spot, but my personal favorite is Some Kind of Wonderful. But Breakfast Club I could watch anytime, any place. I still don't quite get the title. I've analyzed it to death. You can go ahead and please give us your viewpoints on what it is. But, other than they met at the early I just don't get where they came up with that. Why the Breakfast Club? I still don't quite get it. But overall, the Ali Sheedy is my favorite part of that movie. But all of them are great. Molly Ringwald, Emilio Estevez, Judd Nelson, Anthony Michael Hall.
We quote that all the time.
It's one of those movies.
Movie. It's funny, but it really gets to you. It hits you in the heart.
And John Hughes in general, was another one of those people, that directors, writers, that came out at a certain time that he really provided a dialogue and a universal dialogue for audiences everywhere that we could relate to at a very specific time in history that we can still understand now, but at that time was universal.
Well, and I hope that, it doesn't have the glitz and glam. I mean, it's not like, even though Molly Ringwald was, popular at that time, they're not all great looking,
They look like regular kids.
Yeah, they look like regular kids.
Parents,
yep. And
regular
there's
trips.
No action, there's no big scene or anything.
It's just a reliance on these characters. It's all about the characters. So 100% John Hughes, we will always love you.
Yes.
And last for our 80s genre movie pick list tonight is adult comedies. Danielle, why don't you go ahead and read your list first?
All right, my top 5. Twins, The Burbs, The Money Pit, Who's Harry Crumb, and Airplane.
And my list is Trading Places, Desperately Seeking Susan, 9 to 5, Look Who's Talking, and Airplane. So, for me, Trading Places, the big selling point was Jamie Lee Curtis. I love Jamie Lee Curtis, but we watched the beginning of that movie in one of our music appreciation classes in junior high. He wasn't going to let us watch the movie, obviously. But, the musical overture is wonderful, but it's a great switch place comedy. It's based on The Prince and the Pauper, universal tale about understanding somebody else's place or being in somebody else's shoes.
Absolutely.
Very funny movie, but what's next?
Twins.
Twins was great. The You got the perfect, buddy
It's
movies.
beyond great. It's
Buddy,
awesome.
well, buddy comedies are some of my favorites too. But you've got a perfect coupling with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. But it's got heart too. It's a very on the surface comedy, but then all of a sudden it starts getting a little deeper, a little bit more sincere and
The
funny.
two of them are so funny.
It's a funny movie. I really like the ladies in the movie too. This bed is lumpy, and it's a funny movie, but with heart.
Yeah.
Also, I think 9 to 5 is an essential movie. It's female driven. You've got 3 comic ladies. Well, Lily Tomlin. You've got a dramatic actress in Jane Fonda, and then a country western singer in Dolly Parton. But they come together with comedic gold.
Yeah.
And it's funny. It starts off as, again, one kind of movie. Then there's like a fantasy sequence, but then it becomes like a completely different, hilarious movie that it's just wonderful, wonderful. Essential. And then what was next on yours?
The Burbs.
Burbs was a great, Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks.
Essential 80s actor that became a dramatic actor in the 90s, but his 80s comedies
and
were always really great.
And there was a lot of elements because you had all the neighbors, and they all really worked well together. But Tom Hanks is just absolutely hilarious in that movie, along with The Money Pit.
Yeah, The Money Pit's another good one with him. Well, and I love Shelley Long, so she, and they were funny in that together.
I still reference this. Yeah, I couldn't appreciate it at the time I watched it, but now it's like that's something you really think about. Like when you think about buying a house, it's like, and you.
I mean, it may not be as dramatic, but there's those moments. Yeah, there's a lot of those moments. Yeah.
Yep.
And then another big one for me from childhood. I don't know how I always watched it, but I used to call it Sinkin' Susan. But I love Desperately Seeking Susan. You've got Rosanna Arquette, Madonna, and it's obviously, you see the Madonna as she was coming. It's right as she's Madonna happening. But, Rosanna Arquette takes her character on Roberta on this arc that's like, I don't know why, but I love the amnesia quality about it. It's so dramatic and such a fantasy thing. Like, what if I lost my memory and I ended up with the guy of my dreams, Right. But all the characters come together. It's got a great soundtrack, Into the Groove. Yeah. Oh, it's just one of those movies, though. I can watch it over and over again, but at least everybody should have a first-time viewing with it because it's fantastic and it's mid-80s glory. I mean, it's 1985 and it is 100% New York 1985. Yeah. And then go on.
I was going to say, then I've got another, of course, John Candy movie on there, which is Who's Harry Crumb, which I don't think a lot of people have heard of this movie. It's absolutely ridiculous, but
isn't he kind of a detective or something?
Yeah, he's a detective, but he's a really bad detective. Sure. And somebody gets kidnapped, a daughter gets kidnapped of a wealthy person, and the other daughter of the wealthy person has to help John Candy kind of solve like where this woman is. It's such a strange movie, but it's just got that 80s grit to it. Like, you just love it, For
sure. And then we also mentioned Look Who's Talking. We talked about that in another episode too, but again, the comic gold of Amy Heckerling. She's another one like John Hughes that has her pulse on a certain sort of dialogue that's universal and funny. Bruce Willis is hilarious as the voice of Mikey, but they really work the baby too. Oh, really? Good soundtrack. Mm-hmm. And then Kirstie Alley and John Travolta's chemistry is perfect in it. It spawned a sequel, which I like Look Who's Talking 2 even more, but Look Who's Talking is a brilliant movie in and of itself. And 100%, if you haven't seen it, you should, because it's terrific. Yeah. Terrific movie. I did want to mention, honorable mention, Ghostbusters. I feel like that's one of those 80s movies that are iconic. I always found the supernatural adventure side of it more appealing than the comedy side of it, but it is a genuinely funny movie, and I thought maybe we should mention it. But I think that's it for this episode. Stay tuned. We've got other episodes coming. If we didn't pick your pick, let us know. What are some of your favorite comedy movies from the 80s as well as science fiction? Mm-hmm. And what are also some of your favorite John Hughes movies? Let us know whether you agree or disagree. We're just real people talking about really everything here at 411 Pop Culture.